The reason we have public offices of prosecution in America is that in our country, a crime against any of us is considered a crime against all of us. Almost by definition, our criminal justice system involves matters in which the powerful have harmed the less powerful, and we do not expect the weaker party to secure justice alone. We make it a collective endeavor. That's why prosecutors don't represent the victim, they represent the people, society at large.
I'm gonna steal the Declaration of Independence.
Welcome back, folks. My name is Q. This is the Millennial Classics, and on this show, we talk about the best movies, books, and culture-changing events from our generation. Today, we are talking Kamala Harris, The Truth We Hold. And I read that quote up front because I really do like that quote. It's one of my favorite quotes from the book. It gives us a glimpse as to why she decided to be a prosecutor. I have to say up front that it is a memoir. It's an autobiography. It was written when she was doing her run for president in 2020. The reason I'm reading it now, for obvious reason, is because she might be the next president of these United States. And I wanted to get to know Kamala. I wanted to get to know who Kamala Harris is, her family, her struggles, what she went through in life. And I just want to tell anyone who hasn't read the book yet, it was a campaign ad. She hits on all of the highlights in her life. She does touch upon a couple of things that were struggles in her life, but as we go through this review, you come to learn really quickly that the struggles that she's went through in her life has been the struggles of the life around her, not the bad mistakes she made. And that's what I want to know when I'm looking to an autobiography or a memoir. But let's get into this book. It was written, like I said, when she was about to run for president in 2020. She was a senator at the time when she wrote this book. But it starts off like every autobiography at her early life. And we do find out about her family. Yes, she had a Jamaican dad and she had an Indian mom. They ended up splitting up, I think, after her little sister was like 4 or 5 years old. It doesn't matter. She was really young when her parents split up. And then she was raised mainly by her mom. Her mom was a super interesting lady. She was a breast cancer researcher. She does, I think, pass away from breast cancer. I mean, like, the world is a scary, horrible place in life. It is insane. It's insane that that happened to her. I'm pretty sure it was breast cancer. It could have been any other kind of cancer, but her mom was a researcher. Her mom was a gun-ho, really smart researcher. Her dad was a professor. And I don't know, I feel like we could have gotten a whole lot more of the intimacy of who Kamala Harris is, how she grew up, that tension when her parents split. Both of them are professionals. Both of them are really gun-ho immigrants that are fighting for this American dream that we are all fighting for. And it felt really bland reading through the beginning of her life. There are very interesting people in her life. The way that she describes them, the way that she introduces the people in her life, her mom's best friends, her aunts and uncles, all of these things, I feel like there's so much juice left in the fruit, but she just gave us the seeds, right? Just like the nugget of information that is absolutely necessary about all of the folks in her life. I think she does give us a whole lot about her mom, and that was wonderful. I just wanted more from the people in her life in the beginning of her life. And I thought it would have been a whole lot better if we got to find out more about her. But like I said, it's a campaign ad, so a lot of it feels like fluff, but there are seeds, nuggets of truths of like, I know that person in my life. There's a version of that person in my life that is relatable, but I don't know enough about them to truly get into her world. And that is basically just the beginning of the book. And there is another quote that I did want to mention, Kamala's mom's outlook on life and how she has given that to Kamala. And it was a really beautiful sentiment that she has here. And this is just a quote that Kamala's mom always tells her. Focus on what's in front of you and the rest will follow, she would say. This is her mom. That is the spirit we need to bring to building a more perfect union. Recognition that we are a part of a larger story and we are responsible for how our chapter gets written. I do like that because it is just simply put the way Kamala sees the future of this country, the way she sees what we need to do in our chapter in this time. Focus on the thing that is in front of us. Everyone has big hopes, everyone has big dreams, but the thing to do is the thing we can do, and that thing that we can do is only right now. It is a nice sentiment, but she's a politician, and she's a very, very savvy politician. So that is basically the intro to the book, is just her early life, like all autobiographies. But then we get into the entire book after the intro, after we find out about her family, is basically her professional trajectory. Before we get into the professional trajectory, there are some things that I found out about Kamala that I thought was pretty cool, that I would like to know more about. First of all, she failed to bar her first try. And I thought that was interesting, right? She is a very smart politician. She is very savvy, but she talks about it in a way that, yes, I failed. I had to go to school. I had to go to work. She was working at some law office. There was a cohort of young students there that were all taking the bar. She was one of the very few that failed. And like, I wanted more about that. What did it mean to you? How did you go through life the day to day between your first failed attempt and the second successful attempt? But no, she just mentions the fact that she failed it, and then the second time she passes it. I want more. I want to know who this person is. And like, I would hate to say that she really is like the ultimate politician, where she's just like a vapid person. And I don't believe that, because there is meat there. She just chooses to not allow us to chew on it. I found out that she moved to Canada right at the end of her middle school years and right before high school. I don't know if she still speaks French, but she did have to learn French at the time. That was dope. She went to Howard University. I know that is well known for most folks, but yes, she has a Jamaican dad, but she grew up with her Indian mom. The decision for someone to go to Howard University, historically black college, isn't something you do just for points on a political scale. That is a decision. That is where you're going to be forming your most formative years. And she chose to stick with the historically black college. That counts for something when it comes to her identity as a black woman. So it speaks a lot. And she does mention a bit of what her time at Howard was. But again, you know, she was going to rallies and she was protesting the apartheid in South Africa, which is nice, but it's the thing you need to say. I want to know, who was Kamala during the parties at Howard? Like when she joined the sorority, what was that like? We don't get any of that. We just get the fact that she went to Harvard, decided law, and then she protested the apartheid in South Africa. Thank you for letting us know the highlights. Let me know what happened. That is just a constant theme throughout this entire book. It's like, this is not a person. This is a resume of someone she wants us to believe she is. It's all true, but I need more than the resume. I need more than the cover sheet. I want to know the person. The person. And then it's her professional trajectory. And like I said, it is quite the trajectory. I mean, she's the Democratic candidate to become the president of these United States. The trajectory is amazing. It's fantabulous, right? She starts out as a district attorney. She then becomes the California Attorney General. Then she's in the U.S. Senate, and now she's the current vice president vying for the actual presidency for 2024 election. It is truly incredible. I read the prosecutor quote up front because, yes, that is the majority of her life. Her career as a lawyer, she was a prosecutor, and not just any kind of prosecutor. Like I said, she ended up becoming the California Attorney General. That is incredible. That is humongous. She talks about those battles. She talks about those campaigns. I don't need to know any of that. Get that shit out of you. I don't want to know about the campaign. This book is supposed to be about you, not about these campaigns that you went on. And there's a couple of quotes that I want to mention, but the reason I mentioned that quote in the beginning, the reason was because it does give you an outlook, her vision of the world from a prosecutor's perspective. I am here for the people. I am fighting for the people. I chose to become a prosecutor, not because I am fighting for the specific victim. In the situation, the victim is obviously weaker. That's why that person is a victim. But this can happen to anyone in the society. And we can't expect the weaker person in a situation to fight for themselves. So that's what prosecutors are there for, to fight for the weak. But if we don't set a standard, if there isn't a prosecutor, right, then everyone ends up becoming a victim to someone at some point. But the prosecutors are there to say, no, I'm not just fighting for this victim. I'm setting a standard so no one in our society can falter. And there's a couple of quotes that I did want to mention that I thought worked really well, but just zooming out. This is after she's been the California's Attorney General. She is traveling the world. I think she's giving speeches in other countries, and she's talking about the beauty she sees in the buildings where law is practiced. And I just think this is beautiful. I think this is the closest we get to finding out the actual beliefs of who Kamala truly is. It is really wonderful. I love this quote. Probably my favorite from the book. Whenever I travel to a country for the first time, I try to visit the highest court in the land. They are monuments of a certain kind, built not just to house a courtroom, but to convey a message. In New Delhi, for example, the Supreme Court of India is designed to symbolize the balancing scales of justice. In Jerusalem, Israel's iconic Supreme Court building combines straight lines which represent the immutable nature of the law with curved walls and glass that represent the fluid nature of justice. These are buildings that speak. Oh, I love that. These are buildings that speak. The same can be said of the United States Supreme Court building, which to my mind is the most beautiful of them all. That's the politician coming out there. Its architecture harks back to the earliest days of democracy, as though you are standing in front of a modern-day Parthenon. It is grand and commanding while also dignified and restrained. As you walk up the steps toward an extraordinary portico of Corinthian columns, you can see a nation's founding aspirations in its architecture. It is there that the words "equal justice under law" engraved in stone. And it was the promise that brought me to Supreme Court building on March 26, 2013. I keep talking about how I don't feel like we get to know who Kamala is throughout this book. In that quote, at least we see the world through her eyes for just a couple of seconds. And it is kind of beautiful. For someone who gets into law, I want the person who gets into law to appreciate all that is law, and for her to step out a little bit and to tell us why she visits the highest courts of each country, of each land that she visits. It is nice. I feel like I'm really getting to know her and how she appreciates the world. I do like that a lot, and it is my favorite quote, especially the idea of seeing buildings that speak. I think that truly is, from an architectural perspective, that truly is the greatest compliment you can give in architecture. This building that you made for a specific purpose speaks to me through that purpose in ways I can articulate to you. I think that's wonderful. I think that's wonderful, and I love that she did that in there. But in that quote that I just read, you have to remember, she's dropping little nuggets. Like, she's a great politician because in every syllable, in every word, there's second and third meanings behind it. Obviously, she mentions India. She was visiting her family. She's giving kudos to the place that she was raised from the people that helped her become who she was, giving credence there, number one. Number two, Israel. Yes, of course, I don't doubt that their Supreme Court is absolutely beautiful, but that's a nudge and a nod to being like, yeah, of course I believe in Israel's version of justice, right? That's saying it without saying it. And that is a very political thing to do. She's very smart in doing that. That's one of her favorite buildings. Really? Is it really? And then the last part is America's Supreme Court really that beautiful compared to the other Supreme Courts throughout the land, compared to the UK, compared to France, Australia, South Africa, any other country in the world? Is it really the most beautiful? Yes, she's attached. Yes, she's from this country. Yes, she believes in this American dream. She's a lawyer, the attorney general for one of the states in this country. So obviously there's meaning behind it, but does she really feel that way? I don't know if I believe her, but I like the fact that I can see the world through her eyes. I just have one more quote and one more thing that I wanted to talk about before we say goodbye to this book. If you want to get the highlights, I think this is a great book to do the Cliff Notes. I don't recommend anyone going to read this book. That's not true. Sure, read the book if you want to know a little bit more about Kamala. I did say she talks about family mainly in the beginning, but she also talks about her husband and stepkids. Yes, her stepchildren. And it is kind of nice, but it's very polished. It doesn't feel real. There's no meat there. So that's why I didn't mention it. I'm saying if you want to read this book to get to know Kamala a little bit better, you honestly can know more just about the same without the narrative. If you just look at the bullet points, if you just cliff note this book, you'll get all the information, because following the story of her life, it doesn't feel real. And if it is real, like if this truly is how she sees her life, I don't want to say that it was just smooth sailing all along, but the rise is impressive. Where she started to where she is right now is truly impressive. And this is the kind of person I wouldn't mind leading the country. But I don't know if she's really lived a life. This seems like such a seamless life. I mean, your biggest issue in your life, if you read this book, her biggest issue that she caused. I'm not talking about like her family members dying or her parents splitting up. That is something that people go through. But her biggest hiccup in her life that she caused was failing the bar once. That's why I mentioned it. That's the only time I feel like, oh, Kamala messed up here. There's an accident. How are we going to recover? And she just breezes through that. There's not a lot of recovering for Kamala. There's really not. And she doesn't show that part. And I want to see that part because, you know, leading the free world, there's going to be a lot of fuck ups. And I need to make sure that she knows how to bounce back. It just seems like she's always been in a zooming forward motion without really having to reflect or change her ways. Her life hasn't been easy, but it's been so straightforward that she hasn't had to do much adjusting. And I don't know if that's what I want in a leader. I need someone who can adjust. I need someone who's seen life and lived life and fucked up and made decisions to better themselves. She's just been like cruising. And maybe that is what we need. But anyways, the very last quote is, I'm poo-pooing the fact that this sounds is like this entire book is a campaign ad. I am poo-pooing that, but I also want to let y'all know she's a fucking great politician. She knows what the fuck she's doing. And this last quote that I'm going to read for you is the one time as a politician she has spoken to the issues and the problems and the heartache I have living in this country. And she does it beautifully. And I feel like if this isn't one of her speeches, I don't know what she's waiting for, because this needs to be one of her speeches. It absolutely needs to be. The American people have not given up on the American dream. I know this to be true, but when you can't sleep at night, how can you dream? How can you dream when, on average, a year of childcare for a baby or a toddler is more expensive than a year in in-state public college tuition? How can you dream when the cost of higher education has gone up more than 3 times faster than the wages since I was in school in the 80s? How can you dream when you are drowning in student loan debt? How can you dream if you make minimum wage and work 40 hours a week, knowing that in 99% of the U.S. counties, you can't afford the market rate rent on the average 1-bedroom apartment? How can you dream when your pay barely budges no matter how hard you work, while everything else keeps getting so much more expensive? How can you dream when your son is sick but you can't afford your copay or deductible? I am a new parent, so that did speak to me very clearly. And life has always been a struggle, right? But you only live your one life. And it does seem like, what the fuck? Where is this dream that, dare I say, we were promised, right? You work so fucking hard. You work so fucking hard. You try to do the right thing. You try to keep it moving. And this dream seems like it truly is a dream. There is no reality to this dream because of the prices and the costs of all of these things. I really, really like that she has that in there. I would love her to one day make the how can you dream speech. It's beautiful. And it's, you know, taking a note out of MLK's book there. I know it comes off very political, like a politician's speech. It does. But it touches all of the right spots. It's asking all of the right questions. It at least made me feel I'm not the only one that feels this way. It seems impossible for me to one day own a home with my kid and all have this with the dog. And it seems so hard to achieve. It seems so very difficult to achieve. And I love that she had put that in there. As a prosecutor, I want her to fight for the people. All in all, I'd give this book like a 2 out of 5 stars. I did get to know Kamala. I did not need to go through the entire book to get to know her. She needs to give us a whole lot more. I would love a whole lot more. Maybe it's the only way these politicians will give us the real juice is at the end of their career, like Michelle and Barack Obama did after his 2 terms in office. That's the only hope to actually get to know this lady, because I really do feel like there's so much we're missing. There is so much that we're missing in this book. With all that being said, tell me how you guys felt about this book. If you haven't read this book, is there any chance you will read this book? Catch you in the flip. Deuces.